Hello guys! Today we're going to do a little market recap from the Fire and Ice Festival that we did last weekend. So it was a week-long Fire and Ice Festival. The market that we did, it was only on Saturday and Sunday. So we got to set up on Saturday, leave our stuff overnight, and then do the market on Sunday. I was nervous going into this craft fair. I had a few red flags. When I applied to the market, there was a date that it said we would hear back by whether or not we got accepted. So that date was in November, and that date came and went. And I emailed them and I was like, hey, what's going on? Because normally they'll even email you if you're not accepted, saying you've been waitlisted, you're declined, anything like that. And I heard nothing. And a month after that date, that was on their actual physical application, they emailed me and said, hey, you're in, we're just trying to figure things out. And I was like, okay, cool, great, awesome, so excited, can't wait to be a part of this event. And then a month later, they sent me a link to pay. So I was like, okay, cool, totally fine. Sent my money, paid for the event. And as the event got closer, I hadn't heard anything from the coordinator, which is normal. You normally hear when the event gets closer. But it kept getting closer and closer and closer and closer, and I heard nothing. Then we got an email with a sign-up genius with our time to sign up for when we would go to set up. And that was weird to me. Now, there were 3 different sizes for spaces for people to do the event, and they assigned that to you. You either had an 8x4 table, so an 8-foot table, and then your room to like stand behind it essentially. So that's normally considered an 8x4 space, an 8x8 space, or a 12x12 space. And so I'm thinking, why are you sending out a sign-up genius? It would make sense to me to have the 12x12 space people come first, then the 8x8, and then the 8-foot table, because the smaller the space, the less time it's going to take you to set up. But they didn't do that, and they didn't let us know they were sending out a sign-up genius either. They just sent it. And so for half the people, it went to their spam folder. And so then I'm seeing in the sign-up genius people complaining about they didn't even get the sign-up genius, they didn't know about it, it's going to be a problem that they have like a half hour to set up before the event started. So that was really weird to me and a weird way to do it, and I'm not sure why they chose to do it that way. I understand having traffic coming in and out of the building because your load-in can be stressful, especially in a gymnasium situation the way that this one was, but I didn't think that was the greatest way to go about it. So we did get there early because of that, and I did catch it, and I did get an earlier time, but it still was just really weird. And then there was no email sent out from the coordinator with all of the information in one spot. Normally, I'll get an email the week before or 2 weeks before with all of the information in one spot. They sent me an email with my spot number, but no map. So it was just really weird. There was no directions, no place to park, no address, no information. You had to go hunting for all of the information. I appreciate having all the information in one spot. The times of the event, when you're allowed to be there, what time you're allowed to stay till, when they're shutting the doors, all the information in just one spot. Who's my point of contact, who I need to talk to, all of those things in one spot. And they didn't send that information ever. So I had to hunt for everything, every piece of information that I needed.
So the pack-in for this one was interesting. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, but it was definitely interesting. It had its problems. So there were really only 2 sets of doors that you could enter or exit through for the entire event. The doors were about 100 feet from the parking lot, and then wherever you had to park in the parking lot, that's where you had to be to unload your car. So the problem with the 2 doors is that the main door that everyone had to use was set up so you would come in and then you'd immediately have to make a right. But the doors to the right, they opened and blocked the main doors that you went in through. So realistically, as you were coming in those doors, you only had a single width doorway that people had to go into the building and out of the building through while they're carrying all their stuff to and from their booth. So,
and a lot of people were using carts and had a hard time getting it through the doors to begin with.
Right. So they had that as one big issue. Another big issue that they had at this market, which I've never seen before, is they had this little metal piece that stuck out of the floor about like 5-6 inches out of the floor in the middle of the double doorways. So where on like a lot of schools or auditoriums, stadiums, stuff like that, where they'll have two doors meet, they, you know, that metal beam that's in the middle where the doors latch onto. So this place, they could take that beam out, but it attached to this permanent piece of metal that stuck out of the floor. So they took that beam out so people could come through with their carts. The problem is that that metal piece couldn't come out of the floor. So they would stick like a road cone, like a little one, on top of that. And then anytime someone with a cart wanted to go in and out, they would take the cone off, move their cart through, take the cone, put it back. So it would add more time as people were trying to go in and out of this venue. And that caused a lot of added congestion on top of the issue that there was only really two ways in and out of this place. The hallways that we had to go through were rather narrow, and the parking lot that we were going to and from, the only path that they had on it was only barely wider than a one-person path, and it wasn't flat. There was trees that grew near it, so there were bumps and there were holes. And so the people with the carts, like the carts were making everything worse, honestly.
And you got to remember too, a lot of the people who have these carts are older people because they can't carry a lot. So they're walking at 2 miles an hour, and you can't run them over. You can't really go around them. You can't walk past them. So even though you think your load in reality could only take 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's really going to take you longer at these school shows or these indoor shows because you have to account for going around these older people.
Yeah, just going in and out of an event as opposed to being able to drop our stuff directly off where we're going to be, we always account for at least another 45 minutes of setup, literally only because the going in and coming out is going to be slowed down by everyone else there.
Yep. And that wasn't our only issue either with load-in. I had 2 vendors who were next to me on either side who, when I got there at my time, had all of their stuff in my spot.
Not just like blocking our spot, which one of them had one of their carts blocking off almost our whole spot, but they physically had all of their stuff in our spot while they were setting up. Mm-hmm. And one of them was rather rude about it.
Oh my gosh, they were so nasty. One of them was very, very polite. The second we got there, they were like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, and moved their stuff right away, and they were lovely the entire event.
Yeah, they were great.
The other vendor on the other side of us, they were like, oh, is this you?
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, hi,
this is us.
Nice to meet you.
And then after they found out it was us, they didn't even move their stuff for a while.
Nope.
They kept just unpacking, slowly getting their stuff set up, and at one point, Sarah turned to them and was like, hey, can you move your stuff, please? And they were like, oh.
They weren't. I was trying to set up my space, and all of their stuff's in my space. If I did the same thing to them, it would be a problem. I was not happy about it.
Right.
And they were nasty the whole time, and the vendors on the other side of them were not thrilled with them either. They were nasty to everybody. It costs nothing to be nice. Be nice to your vendors on either side of you. There was no need. And their cart blocked our entryway to our space the entire time we were setting up. So Ben had to every time go around, and we only had 8 feet. So their cart was like 6 feet. So I had a walkway essentially to get into my space with all of my stuff. It made it really difficult.
It was just pure inconsideration and rudeness. And then when it was addressed by us, they were just nonchalant about it and then didn't take our complaint seriously. And we were super nice about it. Like, we didn't give an attitude. We know that we're going to be next to these people for the next 2 days. And realistically, your neighbors have the most power to make your time at an event hell. It's super important to make sure that you are polite and friendly with your neighbors. Like, if you have something happen while you're at your booth, they're the ones you're going to turn to and say, hey, can you watch my booth for 5 minutes while I go do XYZ?
It's happened so many times. We've had emergencies happen at events, and our neighbors have been crucial. Like, even at this event, we had car trouble. We had to get the car towed, and getting all of our stuff home. Thank God I had a vendor friend there who lives down the road from me, and I ended up driving back to and from with her both days and putting some stuff in her car to get home, because all of the stuff was not going to fit in our little sedan, because we normally have the SUV to drive stuff to and from events. And we tried to get as much stuff home the day before, but it wasn't possible. So thank God I had made friends with this other person at previous events prior to this one to be able to help, because otherwise I would have had to like, what, rent a car?
Probably.
And this event was not close by either. So, or it's not even like I could have made 2 trips.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, we definitely couldn't have made 2 trips. It would have been rough. We would have had to have rented a vehicle last minute, which would not have been fun.
No.
So that was fun, dealing with the car trouble.
Yeah, the second we pulled into the parking lot in the morning, the car started making terrible, awful noise. But we got that all fixed.
Yeah. Found out that the place we had gotten car repairs done at didn't pay attention to the details. There was nothing actually wrong. It was just the car was making horrendous grinding noises that it shouldn't have been. So make sure you trust your mechanics.
But if my friend had not been there, we would have been in deep trouble.
Yeah. So overall, this was a really good event. It hit our metric that we use to gauge whether or not a market is an okay market, a good market, a great market. So for this market, we hit almost great market metrics. So our super simple way of gauging whether or not a market is okay, bad, good, great, whatever.
Good, bad, and different.
We take however much it costs to get into the event. Let's just say an event costs us $100. In order for it to be considered a good event to us, it has to hit 10 times that amount in sales. So if it's a $100 event, we got to make at least $1,000 at the event for it to be considered a good event. We've heard a lot of other people say that they use 7 times the entry fee. So for that would have been $700. We use that as our okay metric. And then our great is if it's 15 times. So if we paid 100, we made 1,500. And bad is anything less than 7 times that amount. We will sometimes apply for events that were only okay the previous year if it was our first time doing it, especially if it was a rain date or just bad weather that day.
So there's a lot that goes into it. That is, in its most basic form, how we will judge a market good, bad, or indifferent. Now, that doesn't account for if we had to pay for a hotel, if we had to pay for a dog sitter, if how far away it was, gas, mileage on the car, so many different things. So that is in its most basic form. And then there are other external factors that would make a market bad. Did it rain? Was the weather terrible and it was an outdoor event, so people aren't going to go? If it's an indoor event and it's raining, sometimes people still won't show up. This past weekend, I had a friend who's at a market. Saturday, it poured all day. Even though it was indoors, it poured all day, so no one was there. And then Sunday, today, was the best weather that we've had in weeks. It has been so frigid cold, and then today was 60 degrees. No one's going to go to an indoor craft fair when it's 60 degrees outside. So I wouldn't necessarily judge your sales on that day or that weekend based on what the weather was like that weekend, because I don't blame people for not going to a craft fair that weekend. It's not the people's fault. It's not the advertiser's fault. There's so many external factors that could have equated to why the fair didn't do well or why people didn't show up. So that's something where if I was at that fair this weekend, I might have done it again and seen next year. But weather is something that's so out of your control. And then rain dates. Your rain date, if you have a show that's on a rain date as opposed to the original date, it's never going to be as good as what it would have been if it would have happened on the original day. That's just the way it is. Yeah. So if I do a show that's a rain date and it's just an okay event, I'll give it a try again if it's planned on the original date. And you can't control external factors like that. So that's something that I'm willing to look past when I'm looking to do events again. But those are just in its most basic form what metrics I use for whether or not I'm willing to do a show again. But this one went into my books as I'll do it again.
Yeah, it almost hit our metric for great.
Yeah.
Actually,
had we not had car trouble.
It did actually hit our metric for great.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of a drive away from us, but it wasn't the worst drive. And also, one of the things that, I mean, you got to kind of take into consideration is we were able to set up on Saturday and then tear it all down on Sunday. We didn't have to tear it down in between.
That's true. I was able to take some video footage while I was there. I wasn't able to get a ton, so I'll put that at the end of this video of how I did that and what I did. So we pulled in some of my movable stands, and I put sheets on them. That's not gonna fully deter people from stealing, ever.
Right.
But it's at least something. Now, some vendors didn't put anything over their tables at all overnight. Right. Most people didn't.
Some vendors took all of their stuff home with them, like the jewelry vendors. All of them packed up all their stuff and brought it back, which, I mean, most of the time when you've got people that are jewelry vendors, it's small stuff. It only takes up like a briefcase size for them to pack up all their stuff. But because we were able to just throw sheets over it, people in general aren't going to steal things that they can't see.
Right.
Like, they're not going to be tempted to steal it, which is why we just put a sheet over it.
And there was security. They did lock up the gym overnight. We were the last ones to leave the building on Saturday night, but we were hoping to be the first ones there on Sunday. But with the car trouble, we couldn't get there early enough. So we weren't there as early as we wanted to. But so at least we had something over our stuff just to be safe. But that makes it just, at least it makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. At least it makes me feel better. And especially when we're inside and I can't zip my tent, it makes me feel better. So overnight, I pulled in all of my little, whatever they're called. What do we call them? Spinners. And I threw sheets over everything. Wow, you're so tall. So today is day 2 of my craft fair. We're all set up and ready to go. I have an 8x8 space, which is not a 10x10, so it's kind of weird. But this is my whole setup. So I have a 6-foot table over here. I am trying to get rid of the last of my little peep bunnies because Easter is coming up, and my little chicks. So that's what I have in the forefront here right now. And then again, I've got 2 shelves here, all my little bigger stuff. Again, all the stuff on the table is smaller. And say hi.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Hi.
I forgot regular turtles, so I ended up doing 2 things of pigs, and I also forgot the mushrooms, so we've got 2 layers of pigs. Thank you. Wow. I do.